Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan Ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. What role does spirituality play in physical health and mental health? So it's an interesting question because it obviously plays a very important role, and I'll share about that role. But what makes the question so interesting is spirituality is the core of who we are, the truth of who we are. Spirituality shows us the truth of who we are. But tragically, for most of us, we don't even realize that that's actually what we're here for. And so you end up having to sell spirituality the way that you would sell anything, like, oh, well, you live longer and you're healthier and here's what it gives you. As though somehow experiencing the truth of who you are isn't in and of itself the greatest benefit. As though being able to walk a path that actually gives you and shows you that which you are, that weren't enough. That we have to also know, well, what other benefits? Is it really worth the time? If I've got 30 free minutes a day, do I meditate or do I do push-ups? Like which is gonna give me more benefit? Do I meditate? Do I do push-ups? Do I study the stocks? We weigh the pros and the cons of things. And this is what's so interesting these days, is that spirituality has to be packaged and sold as that which has the greatest benefit for you. And luckily, of course, it does, so we can do that. But it's always just interesting for me when that aspect reemerges, because you would think it would be enough to say, this is why you're here. This is the truth of who you are. This is how to know it. That even if it went in the other direction, even if not only did it not help your health, but if it actually made you sicker physically, that people would still do it because they would understand it was more important to know why we're here and to touch that and live that and experience that, rather than to live lots and lots of extra years but in ignorance and illusion. But we're not there, and that's okay. It's just always interesting to remember that we're living mostly in a world where it's all about benefit. And that's okay. So on that level, we know that spirituality is actually very, very good for our health and our mental health. On a physical level, fortunately, this is actually what I did a lot of the research for my Ph.D. dissertation on. So I actually have all of these facts. But we have incredible stories and statistics. For example, Duke University, a very prestigious university in America, did this longitudinal study for, I can't remember if it was 10 years or 20 years, but a long, long study, where they measured every aspect of people's lives. Dietary habits, drinking, drugs, exercise, workplace, families, all of the different variables they measured them all. And at the end of this study, and they were looking at lots of aspects of people's lives. It was a very broad study. But there was one piece of the result that was very interesting, which was that at the end of this study, they found that people who regularly attended a place of worship, a temple, a church, a synagogue, a gurdwara, a mosque, one outside their home, one inside their home, the tree in their backyard that was holy to them, whatever it was, but regularly attended a place of worship, were 25% less likely to die of any cause during the 10 or 20 years of the study. Now, it wasn't enough to just be a member, so you couldn't pay your membership dues but not go. That didn't help. And then they thought, well, maybe it's social cohesion. It's having a social network. But people who belonged to tennis clubs or book clubs or all of these other social networks didn't have such a strong inoculation. Now, by the time I was doing my dissertation and reading these studies, they didn't have an answer. They didn't know why. We knew what it wasn't. I mean, we knew that it wasn't that the prasad given out in the mandirs is somehow, pure, more organic. I mean, usually it's oily, greasy halva. I mean, it's sugar and ghee and what. So it's not that the food is healthier. It's not that somehow the air is cleaner. It's not that we're running medical camps or vaccination drives or something along with our Sunday services. So there was actually no answer that the researchers had. But from a spiritual perspective, I love it. And what I ended up doing much of my dissertation on had to do with the very real physical and emotional health benefits to us of a spiritual practice. And so we have that research. Dartmouth University did a great study where people were coming in right after having their first heart attack. And on the intake form, in addition to all of the other info, they asked one extra question, which was, how religious are you? And there were three options: not religious at all, somewhat, or very religious. And after 6 months, they found that those who had checked not religious at all, forget all the statistics now, I think it was something like 11% or 13% of the people had had a second fatal heart attack within 6 months. Now it turns out that's standard, that within 6 months of the first heart attack, a large percentage of people have a second fatal heart attack. Of those who had checked very religious, guess what the rate of second fatal heart attack was? 0. So we've got all these statistics, and they're fun. And we know it for mental health, of course. We don't need nearly as many studies to prove that to us, because a lot of us experience that in our lives. Just look at yourself. Measure how you feel on your anxiety scale, on your mood scale, on your coping skills scale. Come up with whatever scales you want. It's your life, doesn't matter, make them up. Whatever your scales are, how are you pre-meditation and how are you post-meditation? So we don't actually need science to give us all of those statistics, although we have them, because we know what we feel like after yoga class. We know what we feel like after meditating. We know what we feel like after the arti, after satsang, after all of our spiritual experiences. We know the difference. We experience it every day. So, coming back to the question, yes, that's the impact of spirituality in your health. It improves it significantly. And that shouldn't matter. That's a bonus. Even if those statistics were not there, even if it turned out it went the other way, people who meditate are more likely to catch colds, we should still meditate. The fact that it goes the other way, again, is a bonus. But even if the science said people who meditate are more likely to get colds, we should still do it because that's what we're here for. And if it means that we move through the world with a runny nose, so be it. When our values are in order, if given a choice between no runny nose and illusion and ignorance, or awakening, enlightenment, but runny nose, there shouldn't even be a question here. And so the fact that it does actually also improve our health, bonus, great. But don't be looking for all those extra bonuses. You know, lots of research is coming out these days. They're doing all kinds of brain studies and people who meditate, how their prefrontal cortex is actually thicker, more connections. Well, the prefrontal cortex is the part of our brain that does the highest level planning. Our brains basically have evolved from the ground, the bottom, up and around. And so brain stem here is that which we share with all of our earliest ancestors. As you move up through the brain, you get to stuff that's more specific to humans. The prefrontal cortex, which is literally right here, is the last to evolve. It's the highest level of brain evolution. Well, we now know that people who meditate actually literally, physically thicken their prefrontal cortex. Means they are growing new neural connections. Yeah, neuroplasticity, exactly. We're getting more connections. So that's extraordinary. Better planners, better visioners, better big pictures, better innovators, better entrepreneurs. And it shouldn't matter. That's a bonus. Because we should keep coming back to that, awakened runny nose, illusion, perfect health. Well, what are we here for? Right? So yes, it does have benefits, but let's try to stay focused on the core benefit, which is it is the way, it is the only way to actually discover and experience and live what you are here for. But if along the way you need to get in because the idea of having a thicker prefrontal cortex sounds cool, and so you're now finally interested in meditating, okay, so be it. I'm okay with that. Because the power of meditation is so strong itself that regardless of why you get into it, people ask me sometimes in our yoga classes or our international yoga festival, people will say, well, does it bother you that sometimes people get into yoga just for the fitness? And I always say, I've got such a faith in yoga that it doesn't matter to me why they get involved. If you need the impetus of a slimmer waist to get you into a yoga class, okay. Because the power of yoga is such that regardless of what brought you into that class, you're going to be touched, and you're going to be impacted, and you're going to experience something much, much deeper. And if you end up with a slimmer waist, so be it. And if you don't, so be it. Because by the time you realize, oh, actually, this doesn't work so well to slim down my waist, you've already experienced the other benefits so much that that's no longer what you're worried about. So if you need the idea of a more robust immune system to start meditating, fine, take it. Yes, gives you a more robust immune system. If you need the idea of it helping your mental state to start meditating, great, do it. Yes, it helps your mental state. But then allow the power of meditation to actually show you what it's really about, which has nothing to do with the workings of your immune system or the coping skills you have in the universe. Those are they're symptoms. They're reflections of a system in alignment. But they're not actually the goal. But they're nice bonuses.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit rain.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me.
The difference between meditation and prayer, my guru, Pujya Swamiji, says, prayer is when you talk to God, and meditation is when God talks to you. But here's what's important. When most of us pray, when most of us talk to God, we use it as a time to ask for things. So most of our prayer is, oh God, I know I didn't study for the exam, but just do something I should pass. Right? Oh God, he doesn't listen to anything I say. Doesn't do anything I want. Oh God, just talk some sense into him for God's sakes. Just make him understand. Oh God, I've been so good. I want a house like they have. I want a car like they have. Give me more money, God. Like, give me the winning lottery numbers, God. That's what most of pray for. And the sad thing about that is, first of all, God's not a vending machine. And so it frequently doesn't work. And then we lose faith because we think that somehow, like a vending machine, it should work. I mean, if you have a vending machine in front of you and you put your money in and you push the button and what you wanted doesn't come out, maybe you'll try it a couple of times. If you really want that chocolate bar, you're prepared to, keep putting in money. But eventually you realize, that doesn't work, and you move on. And tragically, when we pray to God for something that isn't actually what's part of our karmic package, that isn't actually what we really need, that isn't actually what's going to take us on our next step closer to God, we don't get it. And then we think, oh, God is broken, or God doesn't exist, or I've got the wrong mantra, or the wrong guru, or the wrong temple, or the wrong... I need a different one, a better one. My mantra doesn't work. I chant it, I still don't get what I want. As though somehow it all were about figuring out this vending machine. The real prayer is that which connects us to God. And so think about, what do you say when you talk to someone you love? Right? Think about someone you really love when you talk to them. If all you did all the time was say, when are you going to do this for me? When are you going to do that for me? That's what we call nagging, not love. Right? And if your loved one, every time you came together with them, if they just kept telling you, I want this, I want that, eventually you'd realize they don't love me, they want something from me. And so if we're able to figure that out, clearly God is able to figure that out. Go to God with love. There's a beautiful story Pujya Swamiji told me right in the very beginning, right after, almost 24 years ago now. And it's a story about a king. And the king had gone off to foreign lands, as kings used to do, with the horses and the carriages, and they would go off to conquer foreign lands. And the king had many, many wives. And before he was about to leave the foreign lands and come back, he sent a message back to all his queens. I'm coming back, what do you want? And the queens all sent their lists. Bring me silks, bring me jewels, bring me fine spices and fabrics and this and that. And one queen, on her piece of paper, sends back just the number 1. And so the king says to his minister, in those days, a lot of the stories, the kings are made out to be not quite so smart. But they had these wise men, these ministers, sometimes a yogi, who would advise them and help them see. So in this story as well, the king was good man, not so bright. And he had this minister, and he said, yeah, this queen, Never been very smart. Number one, what does that mean? I asked for a list. Everybody else sent a list. What does she mean, number one? So the minister says, she's very wise. Number one means you are number one. It means you are the only one that I want. Everybody else wants fabrics and spices and jewels. For her, she just wants her number one. So the king said, oh, wow. He was touched. He sent everything to the other queens. And he personally went to that queen. And I can still remember when Pujya Swamiji finished telling the story, he said, and of course, wherever the king goes, everything goes with him. Naturally, all the carriages, all the horses, wherever the king goes, everybody follows the king. So when we ask for lists, sometimes you may get it. But at the very best, you're just going to get the answer to the list. But the highest prayer is that awareness of, I just want you, God. Just you in my life. Just you every moment. And when you have that, you have everything. And so let that be the prayer. It's not about, oh God, give me. Or, oh God, do for me. But just, oh God, be with me. And then slowly, slowly it becomes just, oh God. Oh God. And that's when prayer starts to become meditation. That's when that prayer shifts into meditation. Because the minute, instead of what you want from God, becomes just wanting God, well then God is there. God doesn't play hard to get. God isn't standing over here saying, first bake me cookies. First prove it to me that you love me. First take me out to the restaurant and then to a movies and give me diamonds. God's not asking anything. So the minute that you ask, just, oh God, God is there. And the minute that connection is there, well then meditation is there. Everything is there. Samadhi's there, yoga is there, moksha's there, everything is there. Imagine that you're walking down a beach and you start to collect seashells along the way. They're pretty. You've got nothing else. You collect them. You end up with handfuls of rocks, seashells. Sparkly, different colors, shiny, pretty. Okay. But at the end of the beach, when you get there, there's a guy with a bucket of diamonds. And he's pouring that bucket of diamonds out. Okay? What are you going to do with your handful of seashells? What are you going to do? I'm sorry? What are you going to do with the seashells? Drop them, right? Anybody going to say, oh, sorry, I can't take your diamonds today, my hands are full of seashells? Why? Because we inherently understand that these diamonds are of more value. The seashells were nice compared to nothing. But when the choice becomes, in our material world, seashells or diamonds, we've got a choice, a handful of seashells, a handful of diamonds. Well, obviously the diamonds are of infinitely more value. In the same way on a spiritual level, that's on the material level. On a spiritual level, Yeah, I can ask for all these things. Give me a better house, give me a better car, get me into the best college, give me an A on this exam, give me this, give me that. Compared to nothing, a nice car sounds nice. Compared to nothing, winning the lottery sounds nice. But when the option is to live in the presence of God, you realize that that is of infinitely more value than all of that which you've been grabbing for along the way. And then you're prepared to just let it go because all you want is God. And that, when we talk about vairagya, this is vairagya. Detachment. It's not, I push away the world. It's not this iron will discipline of I won't be attached to money or things. It's not that. It's I have realized something of so much more infinite value that my attachment to those things has dropped out of my hands as quickly as the seashells. The guy with diamonds doesn't have to say, you really should let go of some of those seashells. And I don't have to convince myself to let go. It's automatic. The minute I realize those are diamonds and I can have a handful of them, it's automatic to drop the seashells. No remorse, no attachment, no misery, no depression. Automatic. In the same way, when that experience of the presence of the divine is there, automatically my attachment to all of that was filling my hands, filling my mind, filling my life. Better job, better car, better house, nicer clothes. More fame, more name, more appreciation, more this, more that. Suddenly my attachment to all of that, it automatically. Because I realized, this is what I want. Yes.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation.
I'm not sure that I would say, either philosophically or due to my personal experience, that meditation is the highest ecstasy. Meditation is the way in to the highest ecstasy. But it's a slight but important distinction. If you look at the 8 limbs of yoga given to us by the sage Patanjali, We won't go through all of them, but just the last two. Limb number 7 is dhyan, meditation. Limb number 8 is samadhi, bliss, ecstasy, that divine union. Meditation is the way in. Before meditation, I have our concentration, single-pointed focus. So it looks something like this. Imagine that you sit down to do what we call our meditation practice. So I sit down and I bring my awareness to one point. Maybe that one point is my mantra. Maybe that one point is a name of God. Maybe that one point is my breath. Maybe that one point is a candle flame. Whatever it may be. But I bring my awareness to that point. I am aware of my breath. I am chanting my mantra. Slowly, slowly, the chanter of the mantra and chanting become one. The meditator, the object of meditation, and the act of meditation become one. That is samadhi. That is the bliss. So meditation is the way in. But meditation takes us into that state of oneness that we call samadhi, bliss, moksha, freedom, a more sustained experience of samadhi, enlightenment, awakening, just different terms. But that's the bliss. Meditation is the vehicle in to the bliss. So it's right on some level, but it's important to realize that as I close my eyes and I sit to meditate on my mantra, on my breath, on a name of God, that practice, that technique is a vehicle into that state of samadhi, that state of oneness, that state of bliss. So it's no longer me meditating on something. It becomes one. And that's the bliss.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation.
The most essential components on the path are love, surrender, and awareness. Those are, to me, the three most essential components of our spiritual awakening. Love, for many reasons. First of all, because it is the core nature of who you are. And so if you're separate from love, you're separate from yourself, you're separate from your truth. And love also because love does not require us to remember. So who do you love most in the world? Who do you love most? Or if there's many people, that's okay. If you don't want to choose between different family members, that's okay. One person you love a lot. Who?
I think in disaster and trouble, I love myself the most because I have to save myself.
Okay, who do you love other than yourself the most?
My family, and yes.
Choose one person.
My wife.
Fantastic. Now, in the middle of a very busy day, do you forget that you love your wife? If in the middle of a busy day, you're in the midst of tons of things, if a phone call came that your wife needed you, you'd be there in a second. Doesn't matter how busy things are. You don't forget because you love her. You don't have to remind yourself, oh yeah, I love my wife. Because you love her. As Pujya Swamiji always says, you don't have to take a mala, right? And say Jyoti, 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 Jyoti. You love her. It's there. You're working, you're driving, you're walking, you're exercising. You're with her, you're not with her. The love exists. It's always there. Love for the divine, of the divine. When it becomes something we really love, it's there all the time, we don't forget. And that's why I say love is, of the three, even the first most important. Because where there is love for God, really in our hearts, it's there all the time. Yeah, we're working. Yeah, we're busy, we're doing this, we're doing that. But we don't forget at any point that we love the divine. That love is always in our hearts. And that's where it really becomes like this beautiful line in the prayer that we chant here each morning that says, Mukhume ho Ram Nam, Ram Seva Hatme. Your lips are always chanting God's name. Your heart is always beating with God's love, even while your hands are doing the work. So where there is love, and that's why the path of Bhakti Yoga is so important, because where there is love, whatever you do, you're doing it as a lover of God. Whatever you do, you're doing it as a lover of your wife. You could be working, exercising, cooking, doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing it as a lover of your wife. The second piece, surrender. Because that which pulls us out of love is expectation. I love you as long as you are doing what I want you to do. And this is true whether it's our wife or God. as long as things are going my way, God is great. Oh, you're the best. But the minute that things are not going my way, we find ourselves angry at God. So frequently people are like, I've been praying to this form of the divine, but that's not working so well for me. I got fired from my job. My kid was kicked out of school. My house burned down. I need a new guru. I need a new mantra. I need to start going to a new temple. As though somehow God were a vending machine that was just all about, you put in your dakshina, you put in your puja, you put in your rice, your milk, your flowers, whatever it is, and you get out, money, success, longevity, everything I want. And when it doesn't work like that, we think, the vending machine's broken, forget it, I need a new vending machine. So surrender is required because you can't actually have full love without surrender, because then it's always conditional. You do what I want, I love. Don't do what I want, I don't love. So there has to be, along with the love, a surrender that says, I'm in your hands. I know I'm in your hands. And that faith. And the third piece is awareness. Because even though I love, and even though I've surrendered, I can get so caught up in the illusion, as you say, of the workplace. We're doing something, we don't respond, we react, we retort, we lose ourselves. Well, what is it that causes us to lose ourselves? No matter how much you love your wife, presumably sometimes you speak to her in a tone of voice that you later regret, that you think, my God. And what do we say? We say things like, that wasn't me. Well, what do you mean it wasn't you? Who was it? But we always say that. It wasn't me. I don't know who that was. Or we say, I didn't mean to say it. I love that one. What do you mean you didn't mean to say it? Then whose idea was it to say it? If you didn't mean to say it, how exactly was it that your mouth, your tongue, your vocal cords made the words come out? What we mean when we say that is, I lost awareness. I lost consciousness. In that moment, I was not grounded in who I really am. Ignorance, ego, patterning, false identities took over. And that's why we need to be aware. That's why all of our spiritual practices emphasize mindfulness. Because if I'm grounded and I'm mindful, I'm not going to say or do something that tomorrow morning I regret. Those things only happen when you're unconscious. So if I say to you right now, okay, on the count of 3, I want you all to take 30 seconds, and I want you to get as angry as you can in 30 seconds, okay? In your own mind. Get yourself full of rage in 30 seconds. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. Was that easy or hard? Hard. Anybody else?
Couldn't do it, even tried, couldn't do it.
Great, couldn't do it. Now, but do you get angry sometimes?
Very much.
Anybody else notice that same discrepancy, that they couldn't even do it when they tried, but they find themselves angry a lot otherwise? Consciousness is the answer. You cannot consciously get angry. And what's interesting is, even though, of course, I'm sure everyone could think of something that makes them angry, so we can all remember the last time we were angry. We know the things that make us angry. If I said we're going to go around and everyone has to tell me something that makes you angry, you could all do it. But what we can't do is consciously generate fury. Because it actually requires us to be unconscious. It requires us to be disconnected and ungrounded. It requires us to be in a pattern in our minds that says, who I am, what I have, the universe in this moment, not right, not enough. I need you to be a certain way, to do a certain thing. Otherwise, I can't exist. But here in this moment, we know there's joy, there's peace, there's enoughness. And so you cannot generate that sense of fury. It only can happen when you're unconscious. And that's where awareness, if you can stay aware, you'll stay grounded. So if you take those back with you, stay in love, remember to surrender, and stay aware. And the breath is a fantastic tool. Every time you find yourself losing that consciousness, losing that awareness, you're in a board meeting, you're getting stressed, you're having a conversation that you're getting very upset about, something is going on in the world, you find yourself losing that sense of awareness. Bring your attention back to your breath. Because the minute that you're grounded in the breath, it brings you back to the present moment. And then that anger dissipates. And then you're able to respond, not react. You're able to stay grounded. And you're able to see anger start to come. Oh yeah, there it is. Somebody's saying something that you know you don't like. And you can see it. I mean, it's happening in you, but it seems like it's happening that from in a distance, anger is arising. But you watch it. And that watchful eye of it actually keeps it from growing and peaking inside you. Anger looked at doesn't stay anger.
This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on OMTimes Radio.